I, 28F, have been dealing with a difficult situation involving my half-brother Thomas, 32M, and I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong here. Some background: my dad, 60M, and Thomas's mom, 58F, had Thomas when they were young and unmarried. They were high school sweethearts who thought they were ready for a family, but reality hit them hard. They struggled to make ends meet and their relationship suffered. They split up when Thomas was just a baby, and my dad moved to a different city for work. A few years later, my dad met my mom, 55F, at his new job. They hit it off immediately and got married within a year. I came along shortly after. Growing up, I always knew about Thomas, but he felt more like a distant relative than a brother. He lived primarily with his mom, but would stay with us every other weekend and for a few weeks each summer. My earliest memories of Thomas are from when I was about 5 or 6. I remember being excited to have a big brother, but Thomas never seemed to share that enthusiasm. He was always quiet and withdrawn during his visits. As we got older, I started to understand why. Thomas clearly resented my dad for not being around full-time and seemed jealous of my closer relationship with our father. I vividly remember one summer when I was 10 and Thomas was 14. We were having a family barbecue, and I was showing Dad a school project I was proud of. Thomas suddenly stormed off, and when Dad went to check on him, I overheard Thomas yelling about how Dad never cared about his accomplishments. It was the first time I really understood the depth of Thomas's pain. As we entered our teenage years, the tension between us only increased. Thomas struggled in school, often getting into trouble and barely passing his classes. Meanwhile, I was a straight-A student involved in various extracurricular activities. This seemed to make Thomas even more resentful towards me. I remember one Thanksgiving when I was 16, I was excitedly telling the family about my college plans. Thomas, who had dropped out of community college a few months prior, made a snide comment about how I had it easy growing up in a real family with both parents. The room went silent, and I felt horrible, even though I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. Our dad always tried to foster a better relationship between us. He would plan activities for all of us to do together during Thomas's visits, like fishing trips or game nights. But these often ended in awkward silences or arguments. As much as Dad tried, he couldn't bridge the gap between us. As adults, Thomas and I only saw each other at family gatherings a few times a year. We were polite but distant. Thomas bounced between various jobs, retail, construction, food service, never seeming to find his footing. I went to college, got my degree, and started a successful career in marketing. Every time we met, I could feel Thomas's resentment simmering beneath the surface. Last year, our dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer. It was devastating for all of us. I took time off work to help care for him, and to my surprise, Thomas also became very involved in Dad's care. At first, I was glad to see him stepping up, thinking maybe this shared tragedy would finally bring us closer. But as the weeks went by, I started to notice something odd. Thomas was spending a lot of time whispering with Dad when no one else was around. He would quickly change the subject whenever I walked into the room. I tried not to think too much of it, assuming they were just trying to make up for lost time. A few weeks before Dad passed, I overheard a conversation that made my blood boil. Thomas was telling Dad he was struggling financially and asked to move in with Dad and my mom to help out. He talked about how he could take care of the house and be there for Mom after Dad was gone. Dad, weakened by his illness and always eager to make amends with Thomas, agreed without consulting my mom or me. I was furious when I found out. I knew Thomas was just trying to weasel his way into living rent-free. He had never shown any interest in helping out before, and I doubted he would start now. But I didn't want to upset my dying father, so I kept quiet. I hoped that maybe after Dad passed, Mom would come to her senses and tell Thomas he couldn't stay. Dad passed away 2 months ago. We were all devastated, but Thomas seemed to bounce back suspiciously quickly. Within days of the funeral, he had moved most of his belongings into my parents' house. My mom was clearly uncomfortable with the situation but felt obligated to honor Dad's wishes. I live about an hour away from my mom, so I've been visiting frequently to check on her and help out. Every time I go over, Thomas is just lounging around playing video games or watching TV. He claims he's job hunting, but I haven't seen any evidence of that. Meanwhile, my mom is running herself ragged trying to keep up with bills and home maintenance on her own. The situation reminded me of when we were kids and Thomas would come to visit. He would make a mess of the house, eat all the snacks, and never help with chores. It's like he never grew up, and now he's taking advantage of our grieving mother. I've tried talking to my mom about it, but she just makes excuses for Thomas. She says he's grieving too and needs time to get back on his feet. But I can't help but feel like he's using Dad's death as an excuse to mooch off her. The final straw came last week. I stopped by unannounced on a Tuesday afternoon, expecting to help Mom with some errands. Instead, I found the house in complete chaos. Thomas was hosting a party with about a dozen of his friends. They had trashed the living room, with empty beer cans and pizza boxes strewn everywhere. The smell of marijuana was overwhelming. I found my mom hiding in her bedroom, too afraid to confront them. She was in tears, saying she had asked Thomas not to have people over, but he had ignored her. I was livid. This was the home where we had grown up, where we had made memories with Dad. And Thomas was disrespecting it like this. I stormed into the living room and kicked everyone out. Thomas tried to argue with me, slurring his words and reeking of alcohol. I told him he needed to move out immediately. He got angry and said I had no right to kick him out of his house. He claimed Dad had promised him he could live there as long as he wanted. I don't believe that for a second. After everyone left, I called a family meeting with my mom and Thomas. I laid out all the reasons why Thomas needed to leave. He's not contributing financially, he's taking advantage of my grieving mother, and he's disrespecting our father's memory with his behavior. My mom tearfully admitted she wants Thomas to leave but is afraid of going against Dad's supposed wishes. Thomas exploded in rage. He called me a selfish bitch and said I was trying to rob him of his inheritance. He brought up all sorts of childhood grievances, saying I always got everything while he got nothing. He stormed out and has been ignoring my calls and texts. I'm at my wit's end. I want to protect my mom and preserve my dad's legacy, but I don't want to betray his final wishes if he really did promise Thomas could stay. Am I the asshole for insisting Thomas move out? Should I back off and let my mom handle this? I'm totally lost on what to do next. Update 1, it's been about a month since my last post and unfortunately things have only gotten worse. I really appreciate all the advice and support from everyone who commented. After the blow-up with Thomas, I decided to take a step back and let my mom handle the situation for a while. I was hoping she would find the courage to stand up to Thomas on her own. Big mistake. I got a frantic call from my mom last week. Apparently, Thomas had convinced her to add him to her bank accounts just in case something happens. He claimed it was for her protection, but I knew he was up to no good. This reminded me of a similar incident from when we were teenagers. Thomas had convinced Dad to co-sign on a car loan for him, promising he would make all the payments. 6 months later, the car was repossessed because Thomas hadn't made a single payment. Dad ended up having to pay off the loan to save his credit score. I should have remembered this and been more vigilant. When I went over to investigate, I discovered Thomas had drained several $1,000s from my mom's accounts. He claimed it was to pay bills but couldn't produce any receipts. My mom was distraught but still reluctant to kick Thomas out. I started digging deeper and found out Thomas had been using Mom's credit cards too. He had maxed out 2 of them on online gambling sites and various bars around town. It was clear he was spiraling out of control, but Mom was still making excuses for him. I tried talking to Thomas about it, hoping to appeal to whatever sense of family he had left. I reminded him of all the times Dad had bailed him out in the past, the car loan, paying off his student loans, even covering his rent a few times when he was between jobs. I thought maybe if he remembered Dad's generosity, he'd feel guilty about taking advantage of Mom. But Thomas just laughed in my face. He said Dad owed him for all the years he wasn't around, and now Mom owed him too. He even had the audacity to say that since I had a good job, I should be the one supporting Mom, not him. I'd had enough at this point. I contacted a lawyer friend who specializes in elder law. She confirmed that since there's no written agreement, Thomas has no legal right to stay in the house. She helped me draft an official eviction notice giving Thomas 30 days to vacate. When I served Thomas the notice, he completely lost it. He started screaming about how I was trying to rob him of his inheritance, and that Dad would be ashamed of me. He even tried to guilt my mom by saying she was choosing me over him, just like Dad did when we were kids. This brought back memories of similar tantrums Thomas would throw when we were younger. Anytime he didn't get his way, he would accuse Dad of favoring me. It didn't matter if it was about curfews, allowance, or punishments for breaking rules. Thomas always played the victim. I stood my ground and told Thomas he had no choice, he needed to be out in 30 days or we'd involve the police. He stormed off to his room and has been sulking ever since. My mom is a wreck over all of this. She keeps saying she's failed as a mother and that Dad would be so disappointed in how things turned out. I'm trying to reassure her that she's doing the right thing, but it's been tough. To make matters worse, I discovered Thomas has been badmouthing me to our extended family. He's painting himself as the poor, grieving son who's being cruelly evicted by his heartless sister. Some relatives have been calling to berate me for my actions. This isn't the first time Thomas has turned family members against me. When we were kids, he would often tell our grandparents that I was mean to him or broke his things, even when it wasn't true. It always worked, and I would end up being scolded while Thomas smirked behind their backs. I'm standing firm in my decision, But I'd be lying if I said all of this wasn't taking a toll on me. I miss my dad terribly and wish he was here to help sort this mess out. But I know I'm doing what needs to be done to protect my mom and honor my dad's memory properly. The next 30 days are going to be tense as we wait for Thomas to move out. I'm staying with my mom as much as possible to keep an eye on things. I just hope Thomas leaves quietly without causing any more drama. Update 2. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I'm relieved to say that Thomas is finally out of my mom's house. But the aftermath has been messy, to say the least. Thomas waited until the very last day of the 30-day notice to move out. He left the place in shambles, dirty dishes everywhere, holes in the walls, and even some broken furniture. It was clear he trashed the place out of spite. As we were cleaning up, we found evidence that Thomas's issues run deeper than we thought. Hidden in his room were numerous empty liquor bottles and what looked like drug paraphernalia. It made me think back to his teenage years when Dad always suspected he was using drugs but could never prove it. What's worse, we discovered he had stolen several valuable family heirlooms on his way out. My dad's watch collection, some of my late grandmother's jewelry, and even the urn containing my dad's ashes were all missing. I was livid. The watch collection was especially painful. Dad had started it when Thomas was born, adding a new watch for each of Thomas's birthdays. He had planned to give Thomas the collection on his 30th birthday, but Thomas's erratic behavior had made him hesitate. Now, those precious mementos were gone. I immediately filed a police report, but without proof that Thomas specifically took these items, there wasn't much they could do. I've been checking local pawn shops and online marketplaces, hoping to spot our missing belongings. The family is still divided over the situation. Some relatives think I did the right thing, while others believe I was too harsh on Thomas. My mom is heartbroken over the loss of Dad's ashes and blames herself for letting things get so out of hand. I've hired a cleaning service to help get the house back in order, and I'm staying with my mom for a while to help her adjust. She's started grief counseling, which seems to be helping her process everything that's happened. As for Thomas, he's gone completely off the grid. His phone is disconnected, and none of our mutual acquaintances know where he's staying. Part of me is relieved he's out of our lives, but I'm also worried about what he might do next. This reminds me of when Thomas disappeared for 6 months after high school. We later found out he had been living in his car, too proud to ask for help. I'm worried he might be in a similar situation now. I'm trying to focus on helping my mom heal and moving forward, but it's hard not to feel angry and betrayed by how Thomas has acted. I keep wondering if there was anything I could have done differently to prevent things from getting this bad. For now, I'm just taking it one day at a time and hoping that eventually, we can put this whole ordeal behind us. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some unexpected developments in our family saga. About a month ago, I received a letter from Thomas. It was postmarked from a rehab facility in a neighboring state. In the letter, Thomas explained that he'd hit rock bottom after leaving Mom's house and realized he needed help for his drug addiction. He apologized for his behavior and admitted to stealing the family heirlooms to fund his habit. Thomas claimed he's been clean for 60 days and is working on making amends. He included a check to cover the damages to Mom's house and promised to return or replace the stolen items once he's released. The letter brought back memories of a similar promise Thomas made years ago. When he was 18, he had stolen Mom's credit card and racked up thousands in charges. He swore he'd pay it back and get his life together, but it never happened. This time, though, the rehab facility lent some credibility to his claims. I was skeptical at first, but I did some research and confirmed Thomas is indeed at the rehab facility he mentioned. I haven't told my mom about the letter yet. I wanted to make sure it wasn't just another manipulation tactic. Last week, I received a call from Thomas's counselor. She verified his progress and asked if we'd be open to a family therapy session. I'm conflicted about how to proceed. Part of me wants to believe Thomas has changed, but I'm wary of letting him back into our lives after everything that's happened. My mom is slowly healing and has started volunteering at a local community center. I'm worried that reopening old wounds might set back her progress. At the same time, I know she misses Thomas and would be overjoyed if he's truly turned his life around. This situation reminds me of when Thomas briefly got sober 5 years ago. He attended AA meetings for a few months and things seemed to be improving. But then he relapsed hard, and it was even worse than before. I'm scared of history repeating itself. I haven't made any decisions yet. I'm planning to discuss it with my mom this weekend and see how she feels. Whatever we decide, I'm going to make sure we proceed cautiously and set clear boundaries. This whole experience has been a roller coaster of emotions, but I'm cautiously optimistic that maybe, just maybe, something positive might come out of all this pain and drama. Only time will tell.